Be in the know with unlimited access to IBJ and Inside Indiana Business. Our in-depth coverage of all things business means you'll always be completely in the know. Subscribe for just $1 a week. Get started now at ibj.com/trial offer.
Do you want to mix moments of inspiration with time to network? IBJ Media Events has you covered. From industry deep dives to awards celebrations honoring Indiana's top leaders, see what's coming up and reserve your seat now at ibj.com/register.
This is the IBJ podcast for the week of Monday, August 25th, 2025, brought to you by Taft. I'm your host, Mason King. Welcome back to the podcast, everybody. Cindy Schum grew up in a troubled family situation and, as she describes herself today, was terribly shy and awkward. Still, she found ways to put herself in situations that could help her be more outgoing. She was great at working with numbers, and she gravitated to a career in commercial lending that put her in front of business owners who loved to talk about how they made things work. She picked a heck of a time to jump from banking to buying a 104-year-old small business here in Indianapolis. She felt something vital was missing from her career, and her husband, Brad, persuaded her to purchase a company in 2019 in the less-than-glamorous janitorial-supply industry. She knew from her experience evaluating company financials and acquisitions that the numbers looked good, and when the pandemic hit several months later, Schum found herself in a position to help customers struggling with the sudden disruption. Still, Schum's plans to grow AG Moss Supply Company were delayed, but its headcount has swelled from 2 employees to 10 over the past 6 years, and its annual revenue has jumped 250%. Its core business is procurement, connecting customers in the utility, education, manufacturing, and hospitality industries with the right suppliers of cleaning and safety products, office tools, and facility furnishings. After some early trepidation, Schum learned that her career in banking perfectly prepared her for entrepreneurship. Whether you're talking about banknotes or toilet paper, she says it all comes down to the quality of your relationships. Schum was our guest on the podcast this week, and here's our conversation. It's my pleasure to welcome to the podcast Cindy Schum, owner and president of AG Moss Supply Company. Thanks for making time to come to the studio today.
Yeah, thanks, Mason. Thanks for having me, and excited to be on this and share our story and hopefully inspire other people as well.
We're going to get to the businessy stuff in a second, but I wanted to know a little bit more about your life story. Where are you from?
Yeah, I'm actually from Dayton, Ohio, a couple hours east of here. So grew up there and then had a chance to go to Ball State. I was one of those kids that worked really hard in school and really wanted to get scholarships to go somewhere. And so I was lucky enough that Ball State gave me a half ride to go there. So so made the decision to come here and go to Muncie, and it was a lot of fun. And then my husband and I, we knew each other in high school, and he ended up coming to Ball State too.
Oh, gotcha. Okay,
yeah. So,
all right. Let me go back for a sec.
Mhm.
Tell me about your parents real quick. What did they do?
Yeah, so I actually did not come from the best of family situations. So, so I actually don't have a relationship with my family. So, and so part of that was working so hard to kind of get out of that situation. And I had always been good at school, so I thought to myself, well, if I can work hard, do well in school, I'll get scholarships, and I'll be able to get out of here. And so that's what happened. And so when Ball State gave me that scholarship, that meant a lot because I was like, okay, this is my ride out of here.
Mm-hmm. So they gave you half ride and then you covered the rest.
Yeah.
So is that a situation where you would say that you emancipated yourself, or just college came and you left and didn't look back?
Yeah, well, so it's interesting because it's hard to not go back and look. And so when I went to college, I was like this terribly shy kid. I mean, Mason, it was like it just like, I was just like that awkward kid. And I was like, how am I going to make friends here? And because I had trouble in high school. And so I remember they were doing like the sorority rushes and all of that. And I thought, wait a second, if I join this group of girls, like I can make friends out of this. Like these girls will have to talk to me. So, the saying where they say you join a sorority to buy friends? Yep, that's exactly what I did. Um, and it worked. I mean, I developed friendships and had leadership roles and just had a great time. And then my husband, he came to Ball State too. And we always joked that I was having too much fun without him. And he's like, wait a second, I'm coming up here too.
I can understand that.
Yeah.
Okay.
And so he joined a fraternity and yeah, so we had lots of fun there. And but yeah, it was good times. And then we graduated from Ball State. And then when we were looking around about where to go, Dayton wasn't really an area that we wanted to be in. And a lot of industry had left Dayton too. And so there wasn't really much there that we wanted to stay there. And so when we were looking at Indy, I remember we came down to the Circle and we're like, well, this is kind of cool. Like from Ohio, we thought Indiana was just a bunch of cornfields,
There's some truth to that.
I know. Yeah.
It's there.
Yeah, it's definitely still true. But it was like, oh, well, this seems like a pretty cool city. And so we had some friends that were moving to Fishers. And Fishers was like, not anything what it is now, but it was like had some like shiny new things that were like, well, this seems nice. Like let's move here. And so that's kind of how we ended up in Indiana. So
as a kid, were you good at math?
Yes.
Okay. So you knew going into college, like, I'm good at math.
Yes.
So
yeah.
Did you go in thinking immediately, I'm going to get a degree in finance, or did that develop?
Yeah, because at first I thought about majoring in psychology. Because I always said when I was a kid, I was like, I want to help people. And I didn't know where or what, because I'm like, I don't want to be a teacher. I don't want to be a nurse, like none of those kind of traditional helper roles. But yeah, like you said, I was good at math. And I was like, well, I'll just get a business degree in finance. Like I'll find something, out of that. That's a good, that's a good degree. And so I ended up minoring in psychology, which was pretty cool. So some of the classes, I took that they were helpful, just to understand people and that social intelligence now that everybody talks about. But that's essentially like, what I was learning, and just to kind of pay attention to people and understand and appreciate where people are coming from.
Mm-hmm. Interesting. So you moved to Fishers, and then what was your first job out of school?
Yeah, so my first was on the Circle. It was at Northwestern Mutual. I was like a financial planner. And it's just funny because not from this area. And so they had us write down, like, they're like, okay, you need to write down 50 people that phone numbers, and you're going to call them. I was like, I do not even know 50 people.
I would think that, there's a good Ball State Indy connection.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. That's been fun to see, too, because I think so many kids, after Ball State, they came to Indy and Fishers. There was a lot of us that started there. So,
okay.
Yeah.
So anyway, so they ask you to write down 50 people that you know, presumably so you can call them?
Yes. Yeah. So cold calling. And again, remember I told you I was like this, shy kid. I was still working through that in college. So, but it was interesting. And I remember they said something about, well, we'll just, like you can network and, and like what you said, like use your connections from college or wherever. And I'm like, I didn't even know what networking was. I didn't get that, the building the relationships and all that. And so I did that for about 9 months. And when I wasn't making any money and realized I would probably owe them money, my husband and I, decided, okay, it's probably time for me to move on at this point. So.
Okay. And then where'd you go from there?
Well, so then interestingly enough, I was trying to figure out what I want to do. And I thought about banking. I thought, well, that's a good, respectable career. So I'll look into that. And so at the time, banking's had a lot of like, It was like all the branches, they had like managers and training programs. So you'd start as a teller and move your way up. And so I was starting to apply for some of those, but I was thinking, I don't want to be in a branch all day dealing with like people, like, in that way. And it just didn't seem appealing to me. And then managing people didn't seem appealing at all at the time. It's like I just wanted to worry about myself, figure that out first. And so anyway, so then I went to a temp agency just to try to get some like office work where I was looking for a job. And one of them was for First Indiana Bank. And they were looking for like an assistant to the lenders. And so I did that for a little bit. And I was just doing like just work. I had one guy who couldn't type, so I would type his emails. He would handwrite his emails out. And then I would type it up. Yeah, I'd sit at his computer. Yeah, it was pretty interesting. But I started to get exposed to like banking, and they were on the commercial side. And I was like, oh, this is really interesting. So one day they're like, why don't you just apply for this job? They're like, we lost our assistant. And I was like, well, what happened? And he was like, she got fired. And then he just kind of laughed. And so I don't know why she got fired, but I was just like, well, what's going on here, But anyways, I had other people come to me, other lenders that I would work with, and they're like, we really would want to work with you. Like, how about you apply for it? So I ended up applying for it and getting the position. And I remember thinking I had to like suck up some of my pride because I'm like, I have a finance degree and I'm an assistant to lenders. But it was like, but my boss at the time said, Cindy, you're going to be exposed to so much things here at the bank. She's like, trust me, you'll find something that you want to do here and I'll help you do it, which was pretty cool. So, yeah. So I did that for a few years. And then I realized that I wanted to get kind of back in sales. When I mentioned I was the financial planner, I really like to get in front of people. And so then I found a route through the bank, and it's called treasury management. Mm-hmm. And so I just started doing that and really fell in love with that. And just the people I worked with was just, we just learned from each other and had some good mentors. And
I was curious about that term. What is treasury management?
Yeah, so it means like cash management. So basically you're looking at the business's cash flow, and there's different products and services that you can sell to a business to help them manage that. Something as simple as like when bill pay became a big thing, and then there's fraud protection services out there too to help protect against like check and ACH fraud. And then there's products too, you can help them maximize their return on the cash that's in their accounts.
Okay. And were you doing that, was it National Bank of Indianapolis?
So before them, it was First Indiana Bank.
Okay.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
Yeah, before they became BMO, and then, yeah. Well, no, yeah, it's BMO now.
And then you were with National Bank of Indianapolis in 3 roles over about 10 years.
Yeah.
Okay. And then what was that progression?
Yeah, so then I started on the cash or treasury management side, and then I realized I would go on all these calls with all these lenders, and they're the ones that really had the relationship with the business owner. And I was like, that's what I want. Like, I want to understand. And they knew more about the business because they were looking at the financial statements. And so I would kind of hear and be part of the conversations as we'd meet with customers. And I'm like, I really want to know more about business and how it works. Like, I understand the cash that's coming in and out, but how it's affecting, the business and how they're making decisions. I was really interested in that. And so I wanted to get on the lending side. And so I kind of went through the credit route, which is kind of where you start to underwrite deals. And so I did that for I think it was like less than a year. And then I was like, okay, I got to get back in front of customers. But it was really neat because I had another good boss there she really pushed me because, I told her that I wanted to keep growing, and she's the one that's like, go for it, do that. And so I've been fortunate. I've had some really people who stand behind me and see things that I didn't see. Did some lending over there. And then I was like, something's still missing. I was like, I love these conversations, and the business owners, like talking to them just like you talk to business owners, like the things that they say, and it's just amazing how business can grow, and just all the things that they would say. Well, hey, we're into this line of business, like. Well, how'd you get into that? And then you'd hear the story, and what it always came back to was relationships.
Yeah.
And so that was always a consistent theme for me. And it was like, okay, yeah, this makes sense. And so when I was at MBI, there's something else, like I said, that I was looking for. And so, I was like, maybe it's a big bank. I'll go to a big bank and see what that's like. So I had some friends, a friend that was at Key Bank, and she was telling me they were doing a lot of business acquisition financing. And I thought, well, that's kind of interesting, to understand how two parties come together and make a deal. And because you'll read the headlines, like in the IBJ, about, hey, this business got acquired by this, but it never really tells you the story of how it happened. It just says that this is this is what happened, and but not really the background. And so while this was all happening, my husband, he was in sales for most of his career, and he was not really happy in what he was doing. And he had figured out how to do his job in like 20 hours a week. I mean, he did, and his bosses loved him, and he did really well. But he's like, there's more for me, out there too. So while I was kind of starting my new job and learning about that, I figured out that when I was telling you about business acquisitions, that there was a lot of good businesses that were out there that owners just didn't have anybody, to pass it on to. So they were working with these brokers who would kind of connect the buyer and the seller. And so I was telling my husband about this. Well, at the same time, we had some friends whose parents were selling their business. And so my husband was like, well, I'll talk to him about it. And yeah, you can see where this is going. Yeah. So we ended up buying the business, and he ran that. But interesting business. It was a concrete chipping business.
Okay.
So imagine like the concrete, trucks you see on the roads, and the drums are spinning around and all that. Well, the cement gets hardened and gets stuck in those trucks.
Right.
So someone has to chip it out.
Wow.
Yeah.
That is a deep cut.
Yeah.
You're right. I think I've always sort of wondered, like, how do they get all of the cement out of the truck?
Yeah. Yeah.
So someone has to go in there.
Yeah. Yeah. So we had crews that went all over the country and shipped out concrete, like with tools. And I mean, it is not an easy job, and I say it's a dirty job, but in fact, Mike Rowe did it on his Dirty Jobs show. So yeah, it's verified. Yeah, it's a dirty job. So, but yeah, so he had quit his job, and he was doing that. I was still in banking, and then one day I came across A.G. Moss, and so I was looking at it.
Had they applied to the bank for financing, or?
Oh, yeah.
I mean, how did you just come across them?
Yeah, so one of the ways that you could kind of get opportunities to work with the business brokers. And so I was connecting with some business brokers, because what they would do is they would bring the deal to banks and say, hey, will you finance this? So then when they had a potential buyer, right, they kind of already had a bank kind of ready to look at it and kind of say, hey, yeah, I think this is a deal that I can do.
So they were ready to sell.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. So I see this business, and it was interesting because it was presented as janitorial and facility supply company, and had been around for over 100 years. And so I thought, well, that's, that says a lot. And then the fact that it was, like, for lack of better terms, an unsexy business. It's toilet paper, it's cleaning supplies, trash liners. I mean, just, all those things that I joke that I went from selling like money paper to toilet paper. So but yeah, so I thought, okay, well, this is interesting. So I said something to my husband about it, and he's like, oh yeah, we're buying this business and you're going to run it.
Really?
Yes. And I was like, what?
He's like, listen to me.
Yeah. I was like, no.
Here's what we're going to do.
Yeah.
You're going to quit your job.
Yeah. I'm like, no, I'm a banker. It's fine,
Yeah, right.
But it was funny because he's like, well, let's go talk to the owner. So we like step into the building. Well, the building used to be across the street from Shapiro's.
On South Meridian?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah. It was it was like two buildings that were put together, and the previous owner, she had it was a 3-generation family business.
Was that the original location?
No, so the original location was in was it Pembroke building, but it's not here. It's not. It got torn down, but it's always been downtown until a few years ago when I moved on the east side. But it was been in different places downtown, but it had been there for almost 20 years. So
okay. So they were over on South Meridian.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and so I walk into the building. I'm not kidding you, Mason. Like I was like, this is it. Like this is what I'm supposed to do.
What about that first experience let you think that?
Yeah, I think a lot of it was I told you, I was feeling like something was missing, and I'd really like started to kind of dig into my faith with that because I'm like, okay, like I love what I do, it's a very good job, being in banking, and like I have, it's good, good benefits, just all the things that you're exposed to. I mean, it's a pretty good gig. And so, but I was like, something is making me afraid to move forward. And so I started to kind of put my faith in front of my fear and say, okay, show me what I'm supposed to do. And so it was like the path just kept getting narrow. Like, Mason, like I had to do this. And then it was like walking in, it was just like, yeah, this is it. And there was such peace with it. And
wow, that's just amazing.
I know.
Because, I mean, for me, there would be an unbelievable amount of fear. Like, how do I go from something that's more or less a sure thing to a much more entrepreneurial situation where, I mean, there's so much stuff that's out of my control. It's not even funny.
Exactly.
And, I mean, that to me is scary. So I'm very risk averse.
Mm-hmm.
But you were able to feel more certain about it.
Yeah. But I'll tell you, like, Mason, like you still have that fear and you're still going through it. But then that underlining faith underneath it is like, I'm going to keep going. There's more out there, that the best is yet to come, and when you have that mentality, it helps you keep moving forward. And I felt like I had lived my life in so much fear before, just, in my upbringing and all that. And I was like, I don't want to live like this anymore, and this was sort of the next step to do that. And, going through college and all that, it was like, well, this is the next progression to do that.
Okay, let's take a quick break to hear from our sponsor. This is the IBJ Podcast.
Taft, today's modern law firm, with more than 800 attorneys in 8 primary Midwest markets and the District of Columbia, we provide solutions to the business issues facing middle market and emerging companies alike. We do this through a highly collaborative and inclusive team approach. Taft, the modern law firm. To learn more, visit taftlaw.com.
All right, we're back with this week's edition of the IBJ Podcast and my conversation with Cindy Schum about taking the leap from banker to small business owner. So in a nutshell, we covered it a little bit, but what does AG Moss do? What do they offer?
Yeah. So we have 2 divisions to the company. So one is the facility and janitorial supplies that I kind of mentioned before. And we work with a variety of like companies, anybody from like an office manager who orders supplies for the office all the way up to public utilities, and everything in between, manufacturing, all of that. And so on that side of things, we really try to understand where the needs are for the customer on the supply side, like whoever purchases it, whether it's a facility manager and procurement, what are their biggest pain points at that point? And then we just work through that and understand like how can we best help them. We like to say that we're their procurement partner. And that we can find whatever they're looking for, because a lot of times these facility folks or office managers, whoever we're talking to, they are so busy and so overwhelmed with what they need to do they don't want to worry about finding, this one product. And it's been that's kind of the fun part of it too, is you find these, I call them like needle in the haystacks for customers. We were working with like one of the public utilities, and they had a supplier that they were having trouble get these wipers, like these paper wipers that their crews use. And he said, yeah, the supplier is not consistent with it. And, it's just like we put an order in and we get some of it, not all of it. And we just need a consistent supply, because when our crews are out, they need to be able to get what they need and go. And I said, well, I've got a supplier for that. I'm like, that's easy. And so I ended up finding it, and then we took care of them. And then you earn that trust with them, and then they're forever grateful. And then you just kind of build off of that and grow from there.
So you have relationships with suppliers, but also you can, for particular things, you can just track them down.
Yeah.
And then, for things that are, I don't know what the right word is. Like harder, hardscaping, things that like need to be installed. I think you told me when we were talking beforehand that so you would have contractors do that kind of heavy work.
Yeah. So then the other side of the business is on our construction side too.
Okay.
So that's been interesting, because the business was always doing, and on the construction side, we call it division 8, 10, and 12, but it's like doors and hardware, bathroom partitions, lockers, fire extinguishers, wall protection. It's kind of all those like non-MEP things, but that are part of a building, and they usually come in at the end, and then also included as like site furnishings, which is like benches, bike racks, all those things that are outside. So what we do is we supply and install. So to what you were saying, when we were growing that, we thought about having our own crews, and then realized that was more than what the work would be to kind of grow the teams. And so we knew there was other good people that do good work. So we're like, let's just go find them and then subcontract out with those folks. So
was the construction side, was that something that you guys started, or something that was maybe smaller that you've built up?
Yeah, it was smaller. And so we wanted to build that up. And like I said, with the business being around for so long, they had some long-term vendor relationships with a lot of like the partition manufacturers for bathroom stalls. And so I was like, hey, we can leverage this to grow. Well, interestingly enough, when we bought the business, one of the things that was happening in the city was when they decided to build the community justice campus.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah, and they moved the jails and the courts and sheriffs and all of that, to its own site.
Yeah, to the Twin Air site. For folks who aren't in Indianapolis, there was what used to be the Marion County Jail, then was combined with a bunch of other sort of related services into a large campus.
Yeah, right.
Called the Community Justice Campus. Is that? Okay.
Yeah, and ironically, I did find out that one of our former locations was like across the street from that. So
oh, seriously?
Funny. Yeah. And so anyway, so we heard about this project. Well, we had worked with Wilhelm before on projects before I came on. And so I go to the outreach event and learn about it and decide, let's bid on this project. And so they one of the things they did was the courts building, which is like 11 stories. And so we bid on it. So we do bathroom partitions. So all the bathroom stalls, all the bathroom accessories. So like the grab bars, the hand dryers, soap dispensers, all the lockers. So there's lockers for like public use, and then also lockers for like the it was like for the sheriffs and other folks like that, and then all the fire extinguishers and the cabinets. So it was all like separate bid packages. So we partner with our suppliers, and they, we figure out the pricing, and we were coming in as just supply only, because they were working with another company that was going to subcontract directly to Wilhelm. So we put our bid in, and then they call us a few weeks later, and we have it on speaker, and they're like, so we want to go over the bid packages that you've been awarded. And they start naming like all of them out. And I was like, oh my gosh, what just happened?
What did we do?
Yeah. um, so we kind of jumped in there. But it ended up like being a really good project for us. And it was neat to be a part of like, the city's history and doing all that. But yeah, there's definitely some, some learning curves that, we had to go through. But
So when you were evaluating the business at the beginning, so I'm assuming you were using your lending acumen, your lending skills to evaluate the business, and you didn't see any red flags. You thought, this actually looks great, and there's opportunity for growth.
Oh, yeah, 100%. And like the prior owner, so it was a 3-generation family business that had owned it. So it was like grandfather, mother, and daughter. And so Laura, she was the former owner. And I remember talking to her and just thinking, we're very similar. And like she had helped it grow so much, but she had gotten to a point where she was kind of like, I feel like it's in a good place. But she's like, Cindy, there's so much potential here. And she's like, you're the perfect person and to keep it going. And so, because she's like, she said, just like what you said with your experience in banking and business, she's like, you can really just grow this thing out, out of the water. So she shared with me all the things that she knew that could be done that she just, didn't have the opportunity to do. So she really helped set me up.
And ironically, for somebody, who started her career being asked to like name 50 connections, by that point in your career, you had a lot of connections. And was that something, I mean, just from all the businesses you'd work with, what did you call them? The business brokers?
Yeah.
Yeah, right. Mm-hmm. So I'm assuming that really came in handy to have those kind of connections, because now you're, they're potential clients.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's crazy. It makes it so funny that you make that connection, because it's not lost on me too. Like what, where I started and what I had grown in the 18 years in banking that I didn't even realize I had grown. You're just doing your job and then but you're connecting with presidents and CFOs and controllers and all these people that make decisions. And so, yeah, I thought, gosh, I could really use these, these connections. So when we bought the business, it was like, hey, I've got my banker, I've got my CPA, I've got my attorney, I have my insurance person. So I was fortunate. I had all those connections, and it was people that I knew and I trusted. Mm-hmm. So yeah, and then as we started growing, then I did contact like my banking connections, and I'd call some business like, so I used to be your banker. Now I bought this business, let's figure out how to do, do business together. And, they were like, sure, like, let's talk, like, let's figure this out. So.
Wow. So that really works.
Yeah.
So how many employees were there when you bought it?
So there was one office manager and the owner.
And they were doing all of that work?
Yes.
The two of them?
Yes.
That's incredible.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
So what you were buying was relationships?
Yes. Exactly. Yep. Okay. Yep. Relationships. Yep. Mm-hmm.
And then how many employees do you have now?
So now there's 10 of us.
Okay.
So when you'd asked me before, I had to like count. I'm like, oh my gosh, it's incredible. And I mentioned to you too, it's like we also, subcontract out all the labor. So we don't have that. And then also like for our deliveries too, we partner with a local company. So yeah, I mean, it's crazy.
Yeah. So from the human resources side, you don't have a lot of those headaches. You have some. Mm-hmm. But yeah, I mean, just part of your model is to, connect people with supplies and people who can help them install or whatever. You're a facilitator.
Yeah. Oh, that's kind of exactly. I call as like a connector. But yeah, I mean, it's one of those things where it's almost like an advantage that I didn't come from the industry, because I didn't have any of the preconceived like notions of how things should be. Mm-hmm. I just knew I needed to build good relationships and to help people and kind of figure out what they needed and find it. And so we came in from that angle. I think that was very refreshing to people. Mm-hmm. We weren't trying to sell them a particular brand of a paper towel dispenser because we had quotas to meet, on that particular brand. It was just like, well, tell me like what's working and what's not. And I always like to ask the question too of like, with who you work with now, what do you really love that they do? And what are those things that you hope they never do to you again? And that always elicits a good like conversation and really helps me know like where I can best help them.
So you bought the business in 2019,
Mm-hmm.
kind of late-ish,
Yeah.
2019.
Yep.
Okay, we all know what happened in early 2020.
Mm-hmm.
How much of a complication was the pandemic?
Yeah, so I remember that day. I remember the convention center called me and said, "Hey," because they're a customer that we work with, and they said, "Hey, do you guys have any hand sanitizer?" And this is like in March,
This is where I was going.
Yeah.
Because I'm like, is it helpful that you were the supplier
Yeah.
of or had connections to suppliers of cleaning stuff?
Yeah, definitely. And so it was funny because we told them how much we had. They're like, "Okay, we're coming to get all of it."
Good God.
And I was like, okay, sure, And then the coolest thing happened was that all of these supplier relationships, they started playing out really well. And so we had like the hand sanitizer, the gloves, the Lysol wipes. It all just kind of happened in the mask. And as businesses were closing down and restaurants, were closing, like I said, we worked with some public utilities. And so, they still needed to be out there and, they were quote unquote essential workers. And so we were able to supply them what they needed. And that was really like rewarding to do that because you really felt like you were making a difference and, keeping people like safe and healthy because they had to do their job. They had to be out there. So what I liked about the pandemic too is sort of was a level playing field for all suppliers. So no matter what size you were, it was just like whether you could get the product and then sell it to them. And so that's what I did. I just worked with my suppliers, and it was all of our normal suppliers that we'd always worked with. They had the things that we needed.
And was it basically just you?
Well, so I had like two other employees by then.
Okay.
So
Like early 2020. Okay.
Yeah. So, but everybody was multitasking, right? I mean, it was just, everybody just was carrying, wearing a lot of hats. And so, but yeah, we were getting through it. And then a funny thing too that happened with the hand sanitizer, that it was at the point where like there wasn't any around, Purell and all that was giving it all to the healthcare facilities. So they just weren't selling it to anybody else. And then that was when, we had local companies that were making hand sanitizer and nobody liked to use it, but we were all using it because that's what you had. Well, I had a supplier who said, "Hey, I've got this supplier who he makes hand sanitizer for like Walgreens and CVS. It's an FDA approved facility. Like you should call him and see if he has any." Because I had like my customers asking me, I'm like, I got to give them something better than this, than what's, but what people are just making, here locally. So anyway, so I called the guy and he told me how much it was. And he said, "Oh yeah, it's prepaid. So you have to send me the money first before I'll send you the product." I was like, "Oh my gosh, are you kidding me?" And this is like wire, like the money's in his account, like leaves mine. It's not, irrevocable, all of that. And so I'm like, okay. So I do it. And then sure enough, the hand sanitizer shows up. So, and I actually did a couple other orders, but people were so impressed. Because like, where did you get this stuff?
So then, let's fast forward about 18 months.
Mm-hmm.
So the pandemic is back to a simmer. And are you now thinking, okay, how do I grow this thing?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because really, it's funny. Because I had ways that I wanted to grow, and then the pandemic just sort of like stopped all that. And so then it was like, yeah, you're right. Like, how do we grow this? And so we knew on the supply side that if we continued to meet with facility managers, that there was opportunities out there to help others. And so that's what we did. We were meeting with all kinds of different companies and really understanding what they were looking for, but also growing our existing base too, because we work with some large companies where they don't, always know the depth of what we have to offer to our customers. And so we've grown a lot of that ways too. And then asking asking that question of like, what's that one thing that you're having trouble sourcing? It's like, okay, well, we'll find that, for you. And when it's, thousands of one thing, it can add up really quick. And so we were doing that. And then at the same time on the construction side, because of the success of that, of the courts building, we started then going out and talking to other GCs that we wanted to do business with. And so I had some existing relationships and so went to them, but also looked at who was doing all of the work and, who I knew was a good company, sort of like at the same professional level that we were at, and so then we started doing lunch and learns, and I talked to, anybody from the estimators to the project managers, to management about, again, like, what are those things, that the subcontractors that you're doing right now that you love, and what are those things that you hate? And what I learned, I mean, this still like blows my mind, but what I learned is it's really people doing what they say they're going to do.
Right.
That's it, And I had one who said, "Okay, I got to ask you a question. So if I call you, do you pick up your phone?" And I was like, yes, of course. But it was something as simple as that like wasn't being done, that people just weren't calling people back or weren't showing up and, weren't following through. And it was just like, I don't understand why would you do business that way?
Right.
And so once I knew that those were the concerns, I'm like, well, this is right in line with how we treat our customers and what we do. So it just really resonated with me. And I thought, gosh, we can really make a difference and help people out every day of just, when something bad happens, you address it and then you come up with, solution A, B, and C, and then talk through it. And that's what we do every day, when project managers and, are out there and they'll, they have issues that they have to deal with and they have to work through it. But it's always from a lens of like, how can we help them and how do we make sure that we get the job done?
Mm-hmm. Is this like a 7-day-a-week job?
Well, it very well could be, but my husband is big on helping me not be like that because I could very easily do that. I have a lot of like pride in working and all that, but I've realized like over time, like you can't do that. You have to have that time for family and yourself too. So I have done a lot better with it over time. I'm not, not there yet, but I do try to at least like one day. It's like, don't do anything, related to the
if you get a
business.
call from, let's say, the convention center again on a Saturday night, are you picking up that call?
Yes.
Okay.
And I've actually gotten that about ice melt before. So, yeah.
Oh, okay,
yeah,
right.
Yeah. So, yeah.
Oh, right. You never know when you're going to need to melt, a cubic ton of ice in front of a building.
Yeah. So, because and then that happens too in that season. It's starting to kind of gear up where, folks are looking at what they have. And so, so we saw that. And that's probably the only thing that really, causes, anything sort of outside of normal hours. So that's interesting too, because when we were looking at a business to purchase, we knew we wanted a commercial-based business that wasn't open on the nights and weekends. And that was my husband's thing, saying, I don't want to do this, and with family and all of that. So that's always been important to him. And
do you guys have kids?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So we've got 3 kids. Yeah.
What?
Yeah. Two teenagers and then an 8-year-old. But and then we also raised my sister. She's in her 30s, but when we graduated from college, about a year in, I mentioned I didn't come from the best situation, but we were able to get her out of it. And so we were like 23 and 22 and had a 9-year-old.
Living with you full time.
Yes.
That's incredible.
Yeah.
Does she work for the company now, or does she have her own thing?
Well, it's funny. She actually does now work for the company. Yeah. But she, what she's overcome too is amazing. And when we were raising her, my husband always said, like, we want to give you the best life, normal, life. And, we never let what happened in the past like lead, who we are, and we just move forward. And so that's really what she did. And it was like amazing, how the three of us, we just kind of came together and did that. And my husband's family was really helpful in that too. Kind of showed me like what a family can be. So just around the beginning of this year, we were growing a lot. We've grown so much as a company, and we really needed like a project coordinator. And I knew she had all the right skills. I mean, yes, like I knew I could trust her, and that was like a bonus. But it was like, I'm like, Patrice, you have everything. I've seen how you work. I know how you do things. I'm like, you would be perfect for this job. And so so she's been with us, and she's like killing it. It's really cool to watch.
Is there a ceiling that you're looking at all for growth, where you just feel like, once we pass a certain threshold, we're going to have a whole new set of problems, and that I don't want to deal with? Or are you just gunning and see where you end up?
Yeah. The latter. Yeah, we are, because I know that things will come together, like in the relationships, things just happen, and it's like, it's definitely a God thing. And there's days where, you doubt like what you're doing, and then something will happen to like reassure me. It's like, yeah, Cindy, like this, keep going, and just the relationships that we build and just the people that we work with. I mean, I love it. I love what we do and how we do it. And I love seeing the employees, do it too. And just the way they talk to our customers and they treat them. And it's been really neat to watch all of that. And I'm like, we just keep growing, and you just grow with people. And we've had to like implement new processes, new software, all of that. But we're very like, Brad and I are both like, let's just figure it out. I mean, we can do this. We've got the connections, we've got people, and we've got that faith that it's going to work out.
Are you bound at all by geography? Because I don't get the impression that you necessarily, I mean, don't need to be physically at a customer's location.
Right.
So you could have customers all over the country.
Yeah. Yeah.
Do you? Is that?
So we don't yet, but yeah, I mean, we can leverage all of our suppliers, warehouses and logistics and just continue to go that way. But you're exactly right. And so, yeah, Brad has kind of looked at other markets to see where we could grow and then what that would take. And sometimes it's just like you get enough of business in that certain area, and then you can continue to grow that. And so just looking at that, and we have customers and like on the construction and the facility supply side where they have multiple locations. Right. So yeah, we could really kind of leverage that and grow in that areas. And I've talked to other business owners who have grown in that way. And actually you had Andrea Sloan on here with Groundbreakers, and she, kind of talked about that too. And her and I, she's a friend of mine too. And we've talked about her growth in Ohio, but she had an existing customer that was there, and it's like, okay, well, let's grow with them and see what other businesses here.
So right now you're mostly central Indiana, but the next step is to figure out like where are the right synergies and where are they located.
Yeah.
Okay. Wow. So do you feel like you have a satisfying career? Are you missing anything now?
Yeah, no. Yeah, I don't. I really feel like I'm exactly where I should be. I love what I do, and I love that every day is a challenge too. You really, some days you have to dig deep, and but we all have that. I'm sure you have that in your job too, where there's some days you're like, how am I going to figure this out? Like they just asked me to do this, and I don't know how to do it, but you do, But yeah, I love it. It is very rewarding, and the other thing too that I want to say too is that a big part of like when I was in banking is I saw all this, all of these nonprofits that we worked with, and I saw all the good work that they were doing in the community. And I'd mentioned how I always wanted to help people. But I knew I could never be one of those people who could face to face and helping somebody. That was not where I, my strengths are. And I saw I would go to the bank would sponsor a lot of events, and you'd go to these events and you'd say, okay, yeah, there's the bank sponsoring it, but you see other sponsors, and it was all these local businesses. And so it was wow, so it's really a lot of business owners who are making an impact in the community. And so that's something that's so important to us, is to give back. And I love that I can do that through AG Moss and help others, And so there's some organizations that we support, and it's we're supporting people through our giving or through volunteering. And so we don't have to be the people that are face to face. You're still helping people and still making that impact, but in a different way. And that's how I know that growth is so important for us too, because the more we grow, the more we can give and the more we can impact.
Wow. Well, this has been super fascinating. Thank you for sharing the story with me.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you for wanting to hear the story.
My thanks again to Cindy Schum. And folks, before you get on with the rest of your week, there are several stories in the latest issue of IBJ that I want to draw to your attention. First up, if you think of an airport's baggage handling infrastructure as its circulatory system, then you'd say the Indianapolis International Airport is about to get open heart surgery. Mickey Shuey reports on plans for a $140 million overhaul that will occur while the old baggage handling system lives out its useful life. Also in this week's issue, Daniel Bradley runs through the challenges of selling an 8-figure estate like the one occupied by late Indianapolis Colts owner Jim Irsay. And Susan Orr reports on the rash of cargo thefts as savvy criminals level up to high-tech robbery. And again, you can find these stories in the latest print edition of IBJ or online at ibj.com. Now, I will say it's quite a bit easier to access all the latest business news and all of IBJ's data on Central Indiana's business community and economy if you're a subscriber. We're running a promotion right now that gives you complete access for $1 per week for 3 months, just to get a sense of how valuable and original this content is. Just go to ibj.com, click on the subscribe button. And thanks again for making time this week for the IBJ podcast. I'm Mason King. Hang in there, everybody. We'll be back again next week.
From breaking news to in-depth articles, discover the advantage of unlimited access to all news from IBJ and Inside Indiana Business with our limited time trial. Get started now at ibj.com/trial offer.
Your commute just got smarter. Turn drive time into growth time. The IBJ Media Podcast Network gives you front row access to leaders shaping Indiana's economy, culture, and future. No filler, just smart, relevant, local storytelling you won't get anywhere else. Find all of our shows by searching IBJ Media in your podcast app or visit ibjpodcasts.com.